Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'd like to take you on a new adventure as we start the second of these adventures that we're doing here in my world, the Eras of Valknor. I am so happy to have everyone along here. For those first time tuning in, this is a channel that we run 100% for charity. The charity that we support is called Satchel's Last Resort. For those of you who follow me on social media, you will see that that is where I got Lunar from just a little tiny bit over a year ago. If you'd like to donate, we do direct donations to them. So if you just click on the donation link or their logo in the dibbly-doo down below, it'll take you right to their site, right to their donation page. Certainly every little bit is appreciated. If you want to say that Tall Squall sent you, that's great, but also you can do it in your name or however you would so like to. Wow, look at all these people, all the friends out there. Thanks for tuning in. So we are going to pretty much jump right into this adventure and go around the room real quick and meet the crew of the Whales Whiskers. And we will start off with Kuma.
Hey guys, I'm Kuma. I go by they, them, and I play Kato, a brass dragonborn life cleric, and he goes by he, him.
Next up, we have Bird.
Hey folks, I'm Bird, I go by he, him, and I'll be playing Baldir the Wanderer, a Loxodon Storm Sorcerer, also he, him.
Next up, we have Soul.
Hey everyone, I go by Soul, he or they, either one works. I'm playing Otrek, a lizard folk artificer. Otrek goes by he and him.
Next up, we have Meta.
Hi, I'm Metazella. I use he, him pronouns. I will be playing Queta, a dwarf fighter who uses she, her pronouns.
Next up, we have Ace.
My name is Ace. I'll be playing Duran. He is a fathomless warlock, sapphire dragonborn.
Great. And last but not least, Grant.
Hi everybody, my name's Grant, and I'll be playing Halron, the Drow Druid of the Circle of Stars in this adventure.
And I am Tall Squall, and I will be your DM on this 10-part adventure as we go on the last voyage of the Whales Whiskers. And without further ado, let's get this started. A thousand stars twinkle in the dark sky above this young world. Civilization here has carved out its first footholds, but much of the world lies unexplored and teeming with the primal forces of nature and magic and life. It's a world that breathlessly awaits an age of adventure so that it may begin to discover itself. We begin our story racing westward over a vast inland sea, its smooth, dark water mirroring the sky above, broken only occasionally by an errant whitecap. Ahead, a towering range of limestone mountains fills the horizon, looming larger and larger as we approach. Spread across the cliffs and valleys of the mountains, clustered points of light begin to appear. Not the cold starlight of the night sky above, but the warm, welcoming light of hearths and lanterns and homes. Our focus shifts to the coastline, where the mountains meet the sea. There, a crescent-shaped port is filled with light and the distant sound of music and song. We pass over 24 ships gently swaying in the harbor, rigging festooned with streamers and flags, their crews dancing to bawdy songs and lifting mugs of ale. As we leave the anchored ships behind us, our focus shifts to the dock and port where the celebrations are magnified tenfold. Colorful tents color every street corner. Banners of every shape and size flow off ships' rigging and shoreside balconies alike. Raucous music of a dozen different styles competes for attention as masked and costumed citizens jostle for space on overcrowded thoroughfares. And at the center of it all, the storied ship of legend, the Whales Whiskered, newly refitted and dressed out like she was queen of the carnival. Mithril accents polished and gleaming, chains of hundreds of colorful lanterns creating the illusion of rainbow-colored sails. The Whiskers and her captain is why they've all come, for this is their grand finale. As we fly in over the whale's whiskers, we see it on deck, a brass dragonborn fussily conducting the lights of the sails in a coordinated display of illumination, radiant fire, and sound, sometimes startling even himself with the loud cracks of thunder he produces and having to adjust his wide-rimmed spectacles from overexuberance. Up amongst the rigging, we see a large white golden retriever with iridescent eagle wings flying in laps around the sails and barking with true joy only a good dog can express as they spin and chase the display of colors back and forth and up and down the length of the ship. As we exit the ship out onto the streets, where the crowd gapes in wonder at the whale's whiskers and children giggle delightedly as the celestial hound dives down to steal pets and scritches from their outstretched hands. Behind them, the teeming crowd flows by, stopping only to grab some tasty treat or other flagon of ale or frothy, sugar-filled libation. Many are drawn down the street to the marvels on display by an odd-looking lizardman. Clockwork wonders of all shapes and sizes crowd and spill off his small stage, scuttling under the feet of the spectators to their amazement and delight. Inventions that wander too far are quickly chased down by a large mechanical crab to be delivered back to the stage. There, the wayward inventions are chided for their carelessness and set back down. Nearby, everyone's attention is drawn to the thunderous spectacle of an enormous Loxodon surrounded by giant sets of pan flutes, shaking the ground with his booming stomps and filling the air with confetti and ribbons as he plays the pipes with his trunk and dances with carefree abandon, lost in his own triumphant music and songs. As we travel further down the locks, we see that smoke as it billows out of a dark, mysterious tent, where the brave, or foolish, wait to hear their future. Many of those exiting the tent are comforted by loved ones as they sob, having heard their dark fate or impending doom. Some are chased out by a grim-faced sapphire dragonborn, chiding them for their old foolishness and lack of direction in their life. He storms back into the tent, demanding the next in line to enter as they shy away from his smoke-filled, darkened door. Many fleeing the tent find solace in the beauty found in the arena set up at the port's town square. The space overflows with a lush jungle brimming with flowers, and central stage, a drow druid showcases all the fantastical dinosaurs they have encountered in their journey here from the northern continent. This is the Whale's Whiskers exposition. But to one person, all the spectacle fades away, because this is how she is saying goodbye. Biriana Brightbangs, from a dark balcony, looks out over all she has created over the last 6 centuries of her life, and she can't help but be swept up in a wistful nostalgia. This is closing night of the greatest show this world has ever known, and tomorrow she heads out on her last voyage. It is well past midnight, and with a deep sigh, she heads back into the street to check in with her crew. She walks down the port, looking around for a certain someone who she knows will give her the pulse of how things have gone. Finally, she spots a plain-looking dwarf in the crowd. Meta, can you describe Queda for us and what she'd be up to half past midnight with about an hour and a half left before close?
All right, so, with her hair kind of bound in like a sort of messy bun, because these acts have been going for a while now. She's kind of been running ropes throughout the night. She's kind of standing in a very plain, light brownish tunic. And her head is kind of just like focused on like adjusting ropes and just like moving structures when they need to be. Her mind is totally just like focused on this. But there is like a nagging feeling in the back, just thinking, geez, I really hope they're going to be gentle with the props this time. Just a little bit.
Biriana walks up to you. Ah, there you are now. How's closing night been treating you, my dear? The crew been running you ragged, or they been keeping their disasters to themselves, at least this week, once evening?
Yeah, well, you know, I could tell you more, Captain, but I feel like I need to just keep focusing on this. Shouldn't you be looking for, you know, the manager, or something and she's like tugging a bit on this rope, trying to just force something that's not quite moving like it should be, as she's saying all this.
Biriana raises an eyebrow and sort of looks around to see if anyone else is around. Now, dear, you know as well as I do, there's no one around. The last of your workers are off the ship, and all the structural reinforcements of the new rigging is installed. Per specification, thank you. But, could you give it one more look? Last check before we get going in the morning.
But I just have to, she says, stuttering a little bit, because she still has to move this rope. And then she sighs. She goes, I'll get it done right away. And then she turns over to hand the rope off to someone who doesn't seem to be there, and yet the rope still moves. Before she goes and like wanders quickly into the back, looking over the last of those procedures that need to be checked over.
She watches you sort of scurry down the dock back towards the whale's whiskers. She sort of says to herself, big sigh. Guess it has to be done. I need to go check on Duran. Ace, tell us a little about Duran and what he'd be up to this hour, and a little bit about his act, and whether before or after, you can go ahead and roll me 3 performance checks so we can sort of inform how your night's been going. First rolls.
Yeah. Okay. So Duran he's a fairly large dragonborn. He's got these sapphire scales that sort of transition into from a deep ocean blue to like a purplish at the edges. And in a word, Duran has been kind of agitated. He's impatient and irritable, and at this point, probably knowing that the acts are coming to a close, he's probably like trying to scare off anybody else who's entering his tent at this hour. I guess I'll make my performance rolls. That's gonna be a 16. No, that's an 11. A 17 and a 24.
Okay. So you see Biriana approaching up to you. There's probably maybe one person left, but the person before, with that 25, you pretty much put the fear of God in them. And as they exit, this sort of ashen-faced dwarven warrior who looks like they've just seen the devil himself, sort of staggers out of your tent and walks away, and the one last person waiting just kind of looks at you and runs away.
Yeah, I would say that he like that billowing smoke that's pouring out of his tent, he would just kind of like give this grunt, and it's like almost a small shockwave, like pushes the smoke out, and as just a final little like go away.
Yeah. Biriana is unfazed, and she sort of marches up to you. Duran, would it have killed you to give at least one hopeful reading this evening? After all, we're setting sail tomorrow. I know you aren't happy with me for calling you all the way back here, but I promise it'll be worth your while.
Would you like for me to give you your reading, Captain?
Oh, not at all. I know better than taking one of your readings when you're in a mood.
But it's a bit of mutual assurance in this case.
Well, it is a big day tomorrow.
All right. And he's got this strange amulet that hangs from his neck, and it glows very slightly from a small, almost like crystal in his that's inside of it, and it's like suspended by just suspended in the air. There's like a chain around his neck that comes below his scarf, but it just kind of hangs there on its own, and he just sort of like pulls at the air around it and pulls some water from it, and the water doesn't really subside, like it doesn't lose any of the volume for that amulet, and he like just swirls it around for a little bit, and he kind of takes a moment to like deposit it in a little basin, and then drops a single stone into it and watches it really intently. And a small smile curls across his face, and he says to Bariana, "It'll be a good day tomorrow."
Well, for once, I think I agree with you. I've got big plans. Big plans.
Indeed.
And here I was worried you weren't going to put on your big boy pants and guide me to what you showed me in our dream that you shared.
I would have preferred to have left when I arrived. And all of this posturing, this show that you insisted upon putting on, I don't understand the point of it all. But if we are leaving in the morning, it is all I want. And after all, you're the only one that will take me where I want to go.
Well, we'll be sailing 1 hour after sunup, so do be on board and not swimming about. I need you to be a part of this. You are one of the main parts of this.
Yes, ma'am.
She sort of gives him a little bit of a look, but trusts him that he'll be there and knows that she basically is holding his ticket to get what he wants as well. So she gives a smile, as she does, and be sure to make it back for the finale. I'm here they've got quite a show planned for us.
If you insist.
Oh, give Kato a break. She nearly died last time she came with me.
I still don't know why you invited her back.
She's a wonderful doctor. And you never know when we might need one. I can only do so much. And Biriana sort of turns on her heel and sort of gives a little bit of wave as she's walking away. Like many guests before her, she sort of takes a deep breath and heads over to the arena. Sort of take in the tranquility of the jungle, the druid-crafted arena that basically takes over almost a full city block of Port Saradan, where Halran has set up his exposition of Tell us a little bit about Halran and what all he's doing.
Sure. So Halran, as you mentioned, is a drow druid who, when he's among the dwarves is pretty tall, but compared to the dragonborn, maybe not so much. And keeps his hair cut kind of short, maybe unlike some of the drow that we're used to seeing. And that's, since he's spending so much time on a ship, makes sense. Hair gets wet, gets in your face. So he keeps it cut short, and that helps him show off the thorn tattoo that runs across the one side of his brow. He also has a falcon feather that he keeps braided in his hair as part of an homage to his area of origin, which is quite far away from the setting of this adventure. And at this point, he's standing in the middle of the wooden stage, approaching the finale of his show since it's getting late, and he likes to have some time at night to enjoy traveling about without dealing with the sun. So he's raising his arms and then finishes the show by transforming into a large dinosaur that he saw on his trips across the Emerald Highlands. And he bounces about the stage for a bit, surprising and terrifying different members of the audience, and just generally enjoying the feeling of being back, not in the jungle, but in something a little more primal than the city.
Biriana claps along with everyone else and cheers the small children who love seeing this large dinosaur. What dinosaur did you turn into, by the way?
I should have known you would ask me that.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to
No,
put
it's
you on
okay.
the
The
spot.
Spinosaurus.
Oh, so
that
yeah,
you
so this
included.
large Tyrannosaurus-looking creature, and it's you get lots of screams of terror, but then also thrilled delight from small children as they get to pet this beast that is truly could swallow them whole, with these large teeth and fangs as big as short swords, basically. And Viriana waits for a little bit and until the act finishes up and people start to clear out for Halran to reassume his drow form.
Yeah, after collecting and handing a couple of the flowers off the stage to some of the children while still in the dinosaur form, which takes some dexterity, he does transform back and come over to speak with the captain.
Do me a performance check to see how this last little bit goes.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Should have done that before things went so well. So, on a natural one,
Oh no.
Nothing happens to the children or the audience members. But as you sort of take a step backwards to go sort of settle back on the stage, Quada's beautiful stage that she had built for you just gets completely crushed by your tail. And Viriana sort of looks at you and laughs a little bit, sort of waiting till you get back into your drow form, to rib you about it a little bit. Well, at least you won't have to rebuild it for tomorrow night.
And I'll have to build it at our next stop. It's the least I could do.
You've always been courteous like that. How did your night go? Certainly,
Well,
other than this last little trip up.
I think the children always like seeing the different dinosaurs and beasts from afar. I know I liked encountering them. I am ready for us to set sail now. It's been too long.
She gives you a big smile and a quick nod and just reminds you, we'll be sailing about an hour after sunrise, so be sure to be on board. Again, as I told Duran, no swimming about. We need you on board. Can't have you being left behind. Need to have my navigator, or one of my navigators, both of my navigators, on board. You're getting along better.
Of course. We've had some time to speak since our less fortunate parting.
Well, there'll be plenty for both of y'all to do before, for where we're going. Enjoy the rest of your night.
He smiles ruefully and tries to put the stage back together.
So Viriana leaves you behind and wanders down and walks up to Otrek's stage. Could you give us a little bit of a description and roll me a couple performance checks? Your call of how many you did. You can do 2 or 3. And let us know how your performance went this evening. And also, a little description of our chonky lizard folk boy.
Our walking sausage, as a few of us have called it. Otrek is a thick lizard, very hefty, very stout. As he paces back and forth across the stage, there's the slapping of his wide feet as he paces back and forth, giving everyone a view of all the mechanical monstrosities and the menagerie that he has, demonstrating the various homunculi, the various clockwork entities, and of course Scut, his steel defender crab, keeping everyone in check and in rein. based on what I'm rolling here in chat, I don't think things went too great. So perhaps in my excitement, I maybe shaded more towards the monstrous rather than the interesting, should you say.
There seem to be their fair share of folks who are a little horrified, but I think one of the big things is, as Biriana comes up, she literally just starts emptying her pockets of parts and small inventions that have either gotten away or left trails of parts down the entire port. I think this little guy was making a run for the Shimmering Grove. Poor thing was out past the last jetty. Tough night for you.
Well, yes. It is one of those nights. You see, he launches into an explanation on how the particular tides and the moon conjunctions and everything is leading to clockwork figurines running wild. It's complicated, but it is perhaps based on something in reason.
Biriana sort of drifts off, kind of unfocuses as you go into the details of all of it, and just gives you a smile, and she goes, "Saw that you had everything on board, ready and set. Not for use immediately, but we'll be needing it before all's said and done on this adventure. It's quite a large structure, invention, whatever that is. As long as it does the job, I don't care. I'm giving up quite a bit of real estate on the back of my ship for it, so I have no doubt it will work just fine."
Yeah.
She does not seem convinced it's going to work just fine.
She knows Otrek too well. Otrek dips his head and kind of cranes up and laughs, a little hissing laugh. Yes, I have made the things you requested. They will work fine. Though, if I had more time, perhaps I could have made them larger.
Well, I know you would have brought along your tools and your supplies, so any modifications along the way, I'll let you have at it. But when the time comes, well, I say this whole adventure will depend on you.
Yes.
She sort of pulls out a pocket watch and kind of starts a little bit and goes, "Well, Kato's going to be wondering if you're coming for his finale, so he has some backup. You best be heading for the ship, and I can't miss Baldir's last performance."
Yes, I shall go.
Biriana waves and walks up the port a little ways. Easy to find. Tell us a little bit of Baldir and his act, and you can roll us some performances to tell us how it went for you this evening.
Sure. I mean, Baldir is our giant, chunky elephant boy. He is a very, very large Loxodon. He is wearing these burnt orange thob, this flowing robes covered in scarves and ribbons of all sorts of colors and designs. And currently he stands surrounded by this giant, almost torso height, humongo panpipe set that I can only describe if I can borrow from another media. Just a big old Max Rebo, and there's a GIF in chat to make that man stick a little bit better. And he is going to town on this giant panpipe set. You can see his trunk flailing wildly, hitting these different notes. And behind him, he's gesturing wildly and largely, this massive frame dancing, like you said, carefree and without caution. And these ribbons seem to be blowing with him in the winds. Not just completely haphazardly, they actually have some direction and specific guidance to their behavior. And this pan flute is making so much more noise than just a single trunk hitting it. And I'm gonna see how it's been going for him right now with a couple of these rolls. Let's see, performance, Let's do a couple of them right here. How about one more? Okay, this is the best he's ever done.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. A lot of people don't come to see Baldir the Wanderer perform. A lot of people come to see Baldir the Wanderer. He is this enigma, this weird figure, this literal being from a different world entirely. So he is truly like one in a million. And so I think he finishes his performance and it ends a little bit better than usual, than the typical kind of just like stunned silence and like one guy in the back going, yeah. I think there's actually some people who dug it this time.
Yeah, as Biriana walks up and watches your performance, and whatever alignment of the fact that it was closing night, that it was just inspired performance. Kids are going nuts, and here at the end of the show, do you do your normal meet and greet?
Oh, yes. He ends the show a little bit surprised himself, like, wow, that is quite the response. Well, usually I don't have that. Typically, folks are here for a different sort of spectacle. And while I wish I personally had the time to meet you all, I can do the next best thing. So everyone gets a nice little meet and greet. And suddenly from him, you see these robes and ribbons begin to expand, and 3 separate Baldirs emerge as he casts mirror image on himself to kind of work the crowd and make sure. And suddenly this echo of voices says, hello, my friend, hello, my friend, hello, my friend, yes, my friend, just begins to ring throughout the night as the real Baldir steps back for a moment when he catches eyes with Biriana.
And Biriana sort of steps over and goes, Baldir, you always bring a smile to my face and a lightness to my heart. Don't ever change. Closing night, you bring all the joy you were hoping for? It looks like everyone feels it did. You brought joy to all these people.
Oh, that's quite nice to hear. It's good to see smiles on faces again. I'm not sure the next time we'll see this many people, and could be even longer before we see this much joy.
It is true. This voyage will keep us away from places of civilization and large crowds for, who knows how long, right?
You see him twist his gigantic head and hear a large crack from his neck and goes, change is good, though. I'm getting a little pent up from time to time. Let's find something new, yes?
Let's get you wandering again, my friend.
See his trunk kind of like, I don't want to say wag like a dog, but you do see it like kind of move reflexively and like a sense of delight.
And so they sort of head off back to the ship. This dwarf who's maybe 5'2", and Baldir who's 8-ish, heading down the dock. And pretty much everyone is now converging back on the whale's whiskers. And Kato is up on deck. So Kuma, let's hear about Kato and how his evening has gone.
I'm gonna go ahead and do the rolls first.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there. Let me just pull out this D&D Beyond. All right. Uno, dos, tres.
Nice.
Yeah, so Kato is currently standing in front of this gigantic sail. And on this sail, there's these different colors flashing in time with the music, in time with things that are happening, trying to just be both a spectacle in itself and also kind of adding into other acts. Whenever like Howron would have jumped through a hoop of some sort, there'd be like a flash of color or something just to try to exemplify the awesomeness that is happening with the other crewmates. And Kato is going to be startled no matter what whenever anyone comes up behind him. Just kind of a jolt and a shock whenever he sees someone, but is generally pretty nice. The colors have been very vibrant. The patterns have been really well. He's been able to keep it together thus far.
Describe us a little bit about what all he's wearing and sort of his demeanor.
He is very anxious. Typically, he kind of looks like he's always on edge as he's wearing these vestments for the stone chalice under a lab coat, and he's got a scarf on because he's a cold boy. He's cold-blooded. He needs some warmth. It's cold outside. So he's got everything basically covered and bundled up, and he looks like a nice, happy, toasty cinnamon roll with anxiety.
Nice. So as Biriana comes on deck, this large celestial hound, it looks like a white golden retriever, much bigger than a golden retriever, more the size of almost a dire wolf, comes flying down from out of the rigging where they've been up sort of barking and chasing the lights around, and lands next to Biriana. His head is almost even with her own. As they sort of land and touch down, Biriana looks over, and you see a blue bicorn hat pops into existence on his head, and he takes his position, flanking Biriana, as would be traditional of the first mate of your ship, Ollie. Ollie.
What a good boy!
Ollie, could you ask Lars to check the decks for any stragglers or stowaways? We'll be pulling the planks tonight once everyone's accounted for. And you see Ollie sort of look across the deck at a sort of blonde dwarf, or almost Nordic-looking dwarf. And you can see him like look up as though someone's speaking to him, and then head off down below decks as Ollie has given him the right command. Some of you have just met Ollie in the last 2 weeks. Some of you have traveled with Ollie. He is a strict but fair first mate, and often communicates in visual images of what needs to be done, or to chide you for knots that have not been tied properly, or things not secured, or decks that need to be swabbed. Every once in a while, he will use his voice, speaking telepathically in his head, but for the most part, he can be found either on the lookout, flying up around the sails, or at Biriana's side. And with that, Biriana sort of takes stock as everyone has arrived back at the ship, and gives Cato a nod and says, "Well, are you ready?"
Cato nods to Biriana, taking a deep breath in and out just to calm his own nerves. The lights that had been flashing and making dance across the rippling fabric seemed to flare back to life, building in color and height until they reached toward the top of the mast like water threatening to overflow. Fingers waving slightly, the image of a blue whale begins to swim up the sail itself, careening towards the top of the mast in tempo with the music. When it seems as though the clerics run out of room for the shimmering aquatic friend, Cato grits his teeth and turns his head and hands, the whale coming alive and off the sails to swim around over the crowd. A dazzling display of color and light, but he hasn't done this in a while, so it's clear he was losing a little bit of steam.
You're muted.
Seeing his friend actually struggle for the first time in a very long time, Otrek channels some of his artificer tricks, pulling down the lighting and the clouds that he has cast into the sky hours before. Skywrite is a very easy trick for him to pull, and it is nothing for him to move the words. As he does so, words pull from the clouds and the sky, hidden before in the darkness. Cato has the ability to have the whale climb across this new sail, this new territory, to which the words are fair weather, fair winds, and farewell. With that, as the clouds start to break apart, fireworks erupt, pyrotechnics rip across the sky, shattering those last words for the whale's whiskers.
A huge, I'm choked up, a huge cheer goes up from the audience, the crowd who's gathered, knowing there's always some beautiful sort of kiss goodnight from Biriana on her last night before she ships out. And just like that, it's over. Closing night has passed. Its final moments and memories of what was once the greatest show that this world had seen now become memories instead of moments. Biriana looks around the deck at those who will join her on this last great adventure and couldn't be happier that these are the people she'll be sharing it with. So, as you all are now gathered together as a party, what are you all up to?
I can tell you that Baldir will approach everyone, and you just hear this booming like sound of his massive hands like just smacking each other, and he just seems pleased as punch. He's just wonderful, my friends, wonderful as always. Oh, beautiful work, everyone.
Queta will be looking at the stage that Haran has wrecked and just ask, I was really hoping, she's like pointing her hands toward like these giant cracks in like parts of the stage. I was really hoping we'd be able to reuse this, saying this directly to Haran.
What is broken can be made whole. And he offers her a flower that he pulled off the stage as an apology.
Aw.
Otrek will be skittering across whatever grounds there are, broad, flat feet slapping against the ground, aimed towards Kato. Yeah, indeed. Aimed towards Kato, making sure that Kato has not overextended himself, knowing his friend is, well, fragile is a word we could use, especially in comparison to Otrek. So just checking in. Otrek will slide up to Kato. Is all well, friend Kato?
Everything is fine. Thank you. I couldn't have done that without you.
How about Duran?
Yeah, what is Duran doing? Duran's probably somewhere, probably towards the back, just leaning against the edge of the ship and just kind of taking stock of the 5 other people that he's traveling with, looking out across the ocean and thinking, finally, it's time to go.
So, anything special people want to be up to this evening before retiring down to their cabins? It is around 1 a.m. at this point, almost, actually probably around more like 1:30, 1:45, as the last of the tents out on the street are sort of packing up. There's still a few stragglers, those people who are going to stay to the last call, as it will. There's a lot of people who've sort of found their second wind out on the streets of Port Saradan after the finale, but others are noticeably at the end of their night, whether they intended to be or not. This is a Dwarven city, and so dwarves have some pretty good constitutions, but they also have some pretty strong hooch. So the fair share of inebriated folks are still out and about, but it's the end of the night. People have been here probably all day. The other sort of local acts are packing up, putting away their tents, other little exhibitions, people from the Cloudvale Steps with their different culinary delights, things like that. But for the most part, things are winding down. So, as the performers, what are you all up to?
Well, Otrek would definitely be taking advantage of the last bits of moonlight on a bay that he's going to be able to. He's going to be lounging in the tidal basins, trying to get a little bit of that water across his pebbly hide before they are out in the deep sea, because he knows Bariana and this voyage is going to take them into some places where maybe that's not going to be the safest play. So he's going to take advantage of that for the last couple of moments, shake off the stress and do that.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Port Saradan, the moonlit, big full moon shining down onto the ocean. The water is warm and pleasant to swim in. Right next to the port there is some pollution, but I mean it's nothing horrible compared to, we've got enough druids around and things like that who keep things fairly neat and tidy. Port Saradan is a very well-kept, clean port. It is truly the center of the nautical world for the Dwarven civilization in this early era of this world. So it is definitely pleasant. How about the rest of y'all?
Kato is struggling to pull a clawfoot tub on deck. He's got both his hands wrapped around one of the legs, trying to pull it up one of the planks that is acting as a bridge between the dock and the ship itself. And he's going to kind of look over his shoulder, almost as if to see if anyone's there to try and help him.
I would say he probably bumps into Duran, who's probably like making his way off ship. And is that really necessary?
Duran, I learned two things during my sabbatical. The first was called self-care. The second was how to shoot a gun. I feel like both are going to help me survive this voyage.
If you insist, and I will I don't know if it's a tub that I can lift, maybe with his help, but if Kato can grab one end and I can sort of grab the other, I will sort of like wave my hand in front of us, and this like ripple of water sort of opens up beneath us, and I will take Kato through it and just drop us into his room. We sort of splash up, casting Dimension Door.
Perfect.
Wow, perfect. Yeah, you drop him right in the middle of his cabin, and it's like the wood on the floor is restained. He's got like reading lights in there. There's like this stone that's always making the room smell like flowers. There's a self-washing wardrobe. Like he's spared no expense, and he starts to try to push the clawfoot tub into the corner, but he's still not making any headway.
Good luck with that. And I'll walk off.
Thank you, Duran.
Baldir, still being outside the ship and in a jovial mood, will very loudly proclaim, "Oh, yes, one last night for a warm and home-cooked meal, a pint of ale, one last time before being surrounded by nothing but water." And you see Baldir, who is nothing but happy all the time, get a very serious, like 1,000-yard stare in his eye as he goes, "Water and fish." Yes, I shall retreat for a meal if anyone would like to join me, and we'll begin bounding towards any open establishment to eat as much as possible and buy as much food, spice, whatever he can to avoid eating fish on this journey.
Meanwhile, Otrek's over here chewing algae off of a rock happily in the bay, could not be any more pleased with his lot in life. Oh, that's a great contrast. Thank you.
So, Duran, you were heading off the ship as well. So, does Baldir? I'd say Baldir's probably ahead of you after your little detour with the clawfoot tub. But
not my intention to go grab a snack, so I'll let him do that.
Okay. Where is Duran off to?
So Duran probably going to take a step off the ship and then come around to the other side of the docks, and then find a point where he can just sort of like leap off into the high end, or like into a deeper end of the of the waters. And then as he comes down, like this, the water beneath him sort of raises up a little bit to like meet him, and it freezes and forms this like little pedestal of ice that he just kind of like sits down on top of for a minute. And he's just going to like sit down, cross his legs, and just sit there and stare outwards for a good hour or two.
Okay. How about Halran? Other than passing off your flower to Queda.
As much as Halran enjoys Baldier's company, he's going to take a cue instead from Ortek and climb up into the rigging, as he usually does, to enjoy the stars and the view of the city one last time. As an elf, he only needs to be entranced for a few hours, so he likes to do this and wait and see that everybody that has left the ship comes back before he goes below decks to take his rest.
Okay. Queda?
Queda would have, while everyone else is talking about celebrating and going off to do their thing, Queda would have already been setting up to repair the stage. So she would have been like very visibly like working, like focusing on working. And at this point, is there no one else on the deck?
Yeah, at this point, there's no one else on the deck. The stage is sort of off the ship, but you could go down there and sort of basically break it down and fix anything as you know. So you're storing it fixed instead of it having to be repaired when you might want to bring it out again.
All right, so she like takes a quick scan around to make sure no one is watching, and she looks at any broken, like actually like snapped apart or broken parts. And casts mending to make sure that it's put together properly. Making sure again that like to be hiding like very much out of sight of anyone while she's doing this.
Do me a perception check and then do me a sleight of hand check. And I'll give you sleight of hand at advantage since this is something you do a lot. Cool. So on a 12 and a 14, again, you have to wait a little bit of time in order to get your opportunity. But yeah, you kind of look like you're just doing normal repairs. And then sort of as your hand almost passes over, looking like you're packing something up, it just, in the pass of just a pass of a hand, it goes from being broken to being fixed, and no one the wiser. Baldir, do me a perception check.
Also, I do have keen senses if this involves my trunk.
It does involve your trunk because it was smelling out what you were going to go find to eat. You tell me, on a natural 20, what do you find?
Oh man, he finds this late night. Is it the best food around? No. Is it healthy? No. Is it exactly what you want at 2 a.m.? Yes, it is. It is just that terrible, disgusting food you wake up the next morning full of regret with. Except being a giant Loxodon, he can pack this, he can house this, and still be pretty okay. And he does indeed commence the housing. That just absolutely destroys plate after plates after plates. Asks for as much to go as he can, gets his haversack out, asks for everything he can get possibly to load up, essentially tries to buy this place out of ingredients and spices and herbs just to be prepped for this journey. And
and this is the last night of the carnival, so it is anything that they don't sell they have to like take with them. So they are cleaning out everything. You are able to fill up easily. You fill yourself, and a normal person probably would find 4 or 5 days worth of rations. It might be 1 or 2 for
I think
Baldir.
I think he even like on the way back like finds people like rolling barrels worth of thing like of inventory back to their like restaurants, taverns, and stops them being like, how far is your tavern from here, friend? The ship is much closer. If you would just roll that right up For this deck below, I would gladly make it worth your while, and just flashes gold from his performances earlier, just doing everything he can to get stocked up.
Yeah, no, and you sort of see, I would say Halloran, especially up on the deck, would just see vendor after vendor, dwarf after dwarf, dragonborn after dragonborn, crates, barrels, just bushel sacks of stuff. They've opened up sort of the center hold of the ship to just let them lower it straight down to the very bottom deck where Baldir has the headroom to have his rooms, and just loaded it in.
I have saved so much gold for this particular moment, so feel free to charge me whatever. Take my credit card.
I would say again, this is a buyer's market right now, so I would say that let's take out 100 gold. You get 100 gold worth of provisions, because it's, you tip well. You're very excited about not having to eat fish, and with this natural 20, let's let it happen.
Awesome. Good to go.
And you do see as you go down below decks, you see the raised eyebrow of a black dragonborn, Nerial, the ship's chef, kind of raising his eyebrow at how you're reprovisioning his ship, or adding to the provisions of his ship.
We've talked about your menu. Don't make it weird on our last night here, okay?
He kind of literally pulls out like a mackerel and just kind of like holds it up to you, and then like very aggressively chops the head off in full view and throws it into a pot of stew, getting ready for tomorrow.
Baldir does not move fast often. He reacts very horrified and makes haste back to his room. You can hear his large door slam, in fact.
Cool. Any other last actions by folks before you turn in for your long rest?
The last thing I'll do is do a last once-over check of all of those levers, machinations, and various setups that Bariana has made me work on.
Yep. I would say if Queta has not done similar with their some of their extra modifications to the whale's whiskers, they would be reminded by Ollie before turning in of the this new reinforced rigging that is all around the ship, the structural reinforcements, the hull, those sort of rope ladders that lead up are like 4 times the size and wider than they had been previously. The ship has been just loaded for bear, so to speak. I mean, it is about as solid as you could ask, and especially around the masts and this rigging and all of these sort of the netting of those ladders, those rope netting ladders that go up from the sides of the ship up to the sails in the bow and the stern. And I would say with that, we will sort of move into evening, and with Halran being an elf and awake, probably would see Biriana sort of walking the deck one last time. She sort of sighs, looks out on Port Saradan, looks at the ship. Probably is few people who she's known for 6 centuries taking a last moment to stop by, wave up to her on the ship. She, after Baldir, Otrek, Duran get back on board, sort of sets Ollie to pulling in the deck, the plank, making sure everyone's on board, everything's shipshape, sort of lovingly walks, dragging one hand against the rail, from one end to the other, just sort of checking her ship and getting ready for what lies ahead. And says goodnight. So, I need Cato to make me a perception check as the night passes.
I don't think I like that.
On a 19.
19.
It is before sunrise. And there is, you kind of roll over in your big down feather bed with beautiful pillows and comforters and all the things to keep you warm. Little night lights still on. And your eyes spring awake. Someone's in your room.
He's going to pull the covers up to his neck and kind of like lift up a little bit to look around.
As you sort of pull up the covers and move, you see a figure sort of just silhouetted in the darkness, the nightlight just making a silhouetted shape. You go, "I'm sorry, sir. Miriana said that I should come get your bath ready and lay out your outfit and get your morning started. She said that because of that you would want it nice, and so she had me come to be your cabin boy."
If that is what she said, I suppose it would be rude of me to turn you away.
Well, it's kind of what I'm supposed to do, if that's okay.
Yes, and he's going to like put on a shirt.
And so he opens up your big wardrobe and sees like the dozen outfits in there. Which one would you like me to lay out, sir?
Can you get the red one? There's like 5 of those.
There's like 5 red ones.
The one that's made out of the You're not going to know what that is.
I can try, sir.
Can you get the one with the golden etching on the arms?
This one, sir? It's the wrong one.
No, the summery, but not too summery one.
He pulls out the heaviest one in there. And this one, and it's blue. This one, sir? I'm really trying,
Yes.
sir.
That is
Please
perfect.
don't fire me, sir.
You're doing a great job.
My great aunt said I should become a doctor. I'm sorry, I probably should have not said that yet. He puts it back. Let me get your bath started. And goes running across.
He's going to carefully watch him just run across. Kind of wondering, oh God.
Stand by 1 second.
Oh God. Oh jeez, Kato.
Oh God.
Hold
And
on
wait
for
for
1
Dr.
second,
Cabin Boy
folks.
to
We
take the wrong
had
way
someone.
now.
Whoop! They just came back. So, never mind. I won't panic. I was gonna say I'm like the cabin boy right now. Let me get folks back into their spots. Kate is in their spot. I think it's just the two of us are mixed. There we go. Okay. As Ace comes back in, I'm sorry. I'm trying my best. Oh, I'm a Fitzgerald Frederick Feldspar the 14th. At your service, sir. Everyone calls me Fitz.
I was about to ask if there was a different shortened version.
Just
That's
call me.
perfect.
Yeah, Fitz is fine. And as he sort of steps now, he's like gone and turned on a light so he can actually see and try to get you the right clothes. Oh, is that okay? Is that too much? He turns it back down a little. Well,
No,
it should be
it's-
higher. Did you want to read?
No, now it's mood lighting. Just turn it on.
Oh, okay. He turns it on, and you see this teenage dwarf, slight of build. They have this jet black hair that looks like they tried to get it to stand down, but it's just going everywhere. Perfectly smooth face. Like one place or two places, there's like a really long whisker that like he probably doesn't want to shave. But then there's this really horrible, like thick patch of luxurious dwarven beard that is like just this weird little off-centered patch on his chin.
Oh no.
And I mean, literally, like centuries-old dwarf would be envious of like how good this is, but it's like off-center, and obviously, it's like his pride and joy. So, do you like? Maybe I'll make both. Do you like coffee or tea or juice? Or I can make all three.
Juice is fine.
Okay. Oh God, I don't have any juice. I'll be right back. And he goes charging out of the room.
Oh God, no.
Wait. Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. You. I will take whatever you have.
Well, I don't have anything, but I can make hot water, and then we can do coffee or tea, or I can go get juice. I'm sure the dragon he's kind of mean, but the cook Nadir might give me some.
He's gonna chop things in front of you. Don't do that.
He does that a lot.
Tea would be good. I have a feeling I'm going to need it.
And Fitz continues on, attempting their best to get your morning started. This is what you get when you pay for the luxury cabin.
They are trying.
And so the rest of you all, how is your morning beginning?
Well, I imagine it begins just like every other morning. I wake up, I lay on the deck for 20 to 30 minutes and absorb the sunlight, and then I perhaps think about maybe doing some work, at which point I decide that this is probably too difficult, but we're going to do it anyways. So I will scuttle myself and my crab and whatever other machinations I have down into the below decks to work on any of the various esoteric projects that either I or Bariana has put to me. Being an artificer, I have a lot of different things on, kind of a lot of spinning plates, so I will be working on that. Does anyone need anything from Otrek? Being a mechanizing, very, very intelligent, but kind of, we won't call him lazy, but maybe sluggish reptile. Is there anything anyone needs from him?
Queta might have actually coordinated with Otrek, asking if there was anything that he could do to bolster some of the rigging improvements that had been put into place. Maybe just like offhandedly asking for any information about, like, if he had been, if he could develop anything that might help with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Otrek is a smith, being a battlesmith. That's kind of part and parcel of the trade. So maybe on that morning, I scuttle down with my slapping giant feet to your cabin and rap tap tap my claws on your door. Keda.
Up to that point, Queta had been awake for a little bit, lying in her bed, just turning over in her fingers a small little a very tiny replica of like what looks like a little floating swan. Just thinking, it wouldn't be that hard to get off the boat right now, if she could slip away and no one would be any the wiser. And she's like weighing the pros and cons of staying on the boat or leaving and just like disappearing when she hears Otrek knocking on the door. So she very quickly stows, it's like when a character in a movie is like looking at this like really weird jewel or whatever that's giving them power, and they suddenly stow it away because someone is like, hey, are you in there? She bolts out of her I think I picked the comfortable setting, so it would have been like she bolts out of her bed, and just quickly opens her door up to Otrek, or yeah, Otrek.
So Otrek's a pretty tall fellow. A lizard folk range towards the higher end of human. So I imagine Otrek's probably 6'8", maybe brushing to 7'2" if you count the cool spined frill. So Otrek would be looking down at Queda, and in that sibilant voice that they have, Otrek would say, "What do you know about Tanzarin's transmogrifications of Tanzanite?"
That sounds a lot like it's probably your strong suit. I can tell because I know nothing about it, she says, very matter-of-factly, just because her mind had been elsewhere right up until this moment. So she continues looking up a little, still fidgeting with the tiny boat in her fingers in her pocket, just going, will any of that be helpful? Is that gonna help you with the the thing that I've been asking you about?
Yes.
Making sure again no one's within earshot.
Otrek gives a couple of bobbing nods, says yes. The transmogrification of Tanzanite is very important. We could infuse that into the you that binds everything. Would you like to see? And he starts kind of shuffling sideways towards his workspace, not really expecting an answer, so much as just offering the chance to follow.
Yeah, Queda was at this point thinking of just taking a moment to stand on the deck for a little bit, but hearing that offer, she decides to just can it for a moment. She lets go of the boat and lets it fall deeper in her pockets and says, "Sure, I think I've got a little bit of time right now." Extends her hands out to Otrek just invitingly and says, What kind of stuff are we looking at?" And then follows him out.
A moment. He reaches into his haversack, and as he roots about, he's gazing deeply into Queda's eyes, trying to figure something out. He's recognized that Bariana respects this particular dwarf more than a lot of the other deckhands or crew. Something about that really has clicked for him. Otrek's not really great about faces, and as a dwarf amongst a crew of dwarves, he wants to figure something out and separate you from the rest. Otherwise, it's just and dwarf amongst all the other dwarves. You have a cabin, and that means he can track you down, but identifying you out of a crowd, very difficult for our lizard folk friend. So he's rooting around in his haversack, and he has a various accoutrement of hats that he gives to people to be able to figure out who they are in a crowd. So he pulls out a number of them, looks at them, looks at Queda, looks at them, looks at Queda, throws a few back, and eventually settles on one. Now, it's not my character, but it is your hat. So tell me about that hat, because I'm curious. What fits with Queda in Otrek's eyes? What makes it something that he can actually pull out from a crowd so that he can identify you and not bite your face in the middle of combat?
Irony of ironies, she would probably, if she had a choice between hats, and she had to pick one, she would look for the plainest brown, very plain, rimmed hat, so that she could cover her face from the sun and from anyone else who might be looking for her. And so it would just be she would be reaching for the very plain brown sun hat.
Okay. So you'd probably be a wide brim, almost like an adventure hat. Something you could pull down, maybe bend the brim down, kind of hide from it. So the hats are not cheap. So these are fine quality hats. We've picked the most plain of the fine quality hat, so I can only imagine the comfort and the joyous like craftsmanship in that. So he gently adjusts it on Quaid's head and says, "Wear this. I must know you. Come, follow. We shall see the tents tonight."
If you say so, Queta says with a shrug. When they turn around to go over, Queta will quickly like shuffle the hat away.
Oh no! Oh no!
This is great. I love
I'm
it.
gonna lose track of you so fast. This is how people die in accidents.
We've got fail safes for that. Don't worry.
So, how is Halran starting his morning?
So Hauron starts the morning by getting out of his simple cot. It takes him maybe an hour, a little more, or a little less than that, to tend to all the plants that he keeps in his room. He has a small little hole cut into the edge of the ship there that lets a little bit of sun come in, that he has a plug for if need ever arise for that. And then he heads up onto the deck to get some good use out of the hat that Ortek gave him a while back, which is quite wide brimmed, a straw hat that helps keep the sun out of his sensitive eyes. And then with that, he again just enjoys the nice day, says hi to everybody on the ship, and eventually will make his way down to the ship's chef to have some breakfast.
Okay. Baldir, how about you in the morning?
There is like plumes of like white steam or smoke pouring out of Baldir's door, and it's this strange, hopefully pleasant combination of tobacco and coffee. As Baldir is his room that's just draped in curtains to hide as much of the wood of the cabin as possible, every inch of it. He has all these shelves built in that previously housed books, artifacts, remnants of his journeys walking across the entirety of the lands. All that junk is on the floor at this point, and he just has rows and rows and rows of spices, of herbs, of cookbooks, of recipes, of so much just food, coffee, and fine tobacco that he is just sorting and trying to cram and categorize everything in a very motivated but still sort of ho-hum, like very easy morning going, as he, takes a puff from his hookah and lets another cloud of smoke like exit throughout the room and eventually enter the rest of the cabins. He takes a sip of coffee, and his door is open in the mornings for anyone who wants to partake in either. So yeah, he just is kind of humming to himself as he picks up a small glass figurine that he was gifted from some noble he helped walk through the mountains, and just kind of tosses it aside and puts up another row of jars of this jelly and jam he acquired from a recent travel.
Cool. And Duron, how about you? How's your morning?
It's probably going pretty solitarily. I would say he's probably in his quarters, snacking on some probably dried fish or something like that he's managed to find, and there's just like this little small bottle in his quarters that's just emanating this small, like, strange smokiness that he fills his room with, and he's probably just keeping to himself right now.
Great. So, about an hour or so passes. Cato, Fitz has finally gotten you a lukewarm, watery cup of tea, a bath half drawn, and literally it was by process of elimination that finally was able to get you the outfit you needed. But every one of you, and in fact the whole crew, you see a image come into your head from a familiar source as Ollie sort of projects out telepathically. There's a small sort of, instead of like being a whistle, there's like a bark in your mind, as then sort of calling people to deck because it is almost time to cast off. As you all come upstairs, up to the upper decks, you can see most of the crew is gathered there. Ollie is there. He's sort of taking a lap around, checking the ship. You can see him sort of looking pointedly at different other deckhands as they go and tighten down ropes and put the final sort of battening down the hatches before they set sail. As you look off sort of onto Port Saradin, you can see there's a little bit of a crowd that has gathered to see Biriana off. But for the most part, people are sort of looking from the windows in their houses, these sort of 2- and 3-story houses, some even a few streets back that look down on the port. They're looking out from within their homes. They're either sort of not quite awake yet or way too awake with hangovers. There's a few people sort of sleeping on the streets, as will often happen. And Biriana looks to Ollie and goes, "Ollie, if you'll have the crew cast us off, please. But sails to remain furled." And you see the crew, some of the other just crew hands, Queta probably lends a hand as well, goes and sort of pushes the ship off, unties the ropes, and sort of pushes the ship off of the dock. And there's sort of this weird, sort of pregnant pause as the ship just sort of drifts away from the dock, just being slowly carried out by the current. And everyone sort of is looking to Biriana. Biriana is just sort of looking back at the crowd. And then she sort of leans over to Baldir and goes, "Sometimes even my tongue gets a bit tied. You just have to let the spectacle speak for itself." Wait for it. Biriana looks to the sky. Here we go. Right on time. There's a deep thwomp that rattles the very bones of the surrounding mountains. All across Port Saradin, you see windows being flung open and people stepping out of doorways looking around. Everyone wondering what that was, what it could be. Not quite sure if they should be scared or elated. Then shooting into view over the tallest peaks, you see a massive metallic dragon catching the rising sun on their wings, looking like a shooting star. Murmurs begin to echo across the crowd. Could it be? No, it can't be. If not them, then who else? Another huge thwoop, and almost in unison, Jin Sarat! It's Jin Sarat! They haven't been seen in centuries. Jin Sarat is here. This giant, ancient blast dragon swings out beyond the anchored ships in the harbor in a wide circle as they bank, letting a single wingtip slice into the waves. It's heart-stoppingly evident just how massive this primordial brass dragon is, as even the tallest mast of the ships they pass by don't reach the span of a single wing. They curve around across port before coming to hover over the whale's whisker. The giant dragon tilts its head down, looks at Biriana, gives a wink, who gives a wink back. Jin Sarat reaches down with their arms and legs, grasping this new rigging that has been installed at the bow and stern of the ship. Gently at first they flap their wings, then more intensely, once again, and then finally, with a huge surge of power, they surge up into the sky, carrying the whale's whiskers with them. The ship takes to the sky, and Biriana beams with a smile almost brighter than the dragon above her. Jin Sarat takes her on a lap above the port that she helped build and make the center of the nautical world. The cheers echoing up from the crowd below for their guiding star, their muse, the godmother of sailor and pirate alike, drown out even the thunderous wing beats of Jin Sarat. With a single tear and a small wave and a whispered goodbye, Biriana Brightbangs slipped not into the sunset, but soared into the sunrise and on to new adventures. That was the last most people saw of the whale's whiskers. Her flying westward, up over the mountains and onto oceans that had never been sailed before. So, how are y'all doing up there on the ship that is now airborne, flying, not out to sea, but up over the mountains, across and out to new adventures?
Baldir looks around and just says almost out loud to himself, "Oh, I get to finish my coffee today." Just like a sigh of relief that he gets to enjoy it all the way through.
Has his claws on the side, and he looks like he's about to hurl.
I would say, like, at this commotion, Duron, who is not privy to this plan, bursts out of his quarters, like, "What is going on?" And then looks to his side, and thinking we were sailing around the entire continent, now realizing we were in the air flying over the mountains, he's gonna give us look over to Bariana and just kind of be like, "Why didn't you tell me?"
She just gives you a big, big smile and a wink. And, what would be the fun in that?
Okay. So Otrek would not be handling this well. He is a marine reptile. Heights are not his thing. So there'd be a slap, 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 as he goes back and forth a couple times and then dives back below deck. Just like, oh, nope. Entirely a bunch of nope.
Yeah.
he would have no chill with being suspended in midair. That is not at all the ocean. That is not at all cool. We're going back below decks. We're just gonna pretend this never happened.
Halron, how are you doing?
Halron is much more used to flying than most people, being able to frequently transform into the giant falcon. That's one of his preferred wild shapes. So he'll clap Kato and Otrek on the shoulder reassuringly before climbing into the rigging to get a better view and to get closer to the dragon and just to take in this magnificent experience.
Queta, Biriana comes over to you, and you weren't quite sure what they were for, but she says to you, "Queta, if you will deploy the wing sails, we want to give our friend here a little bit of help. Baldir, you can finish your coffee, but a little uplift, if you would."
See the trunk kind of as the little bit of wind just shoots forth.
Yep. And Queta, as you go over to these two massive sort of levers that you've installed, you pull them back, and from underneath the bow of the ship, these two huge wing sails unfurl out from the front of them, and with Baldir's wind coming from below instead of behind, helps to buoy the ship even higher as Jin Sarat takes you all up further over the mountains. Our navigators, knowing that this is certainly the quickest way to get to where everyone was hoping to go. And with that, we're going to take our break and be back in just a few minutes, everybody. Hope you've enjoyed the beginning of our show.
Ooh.
And we are back. Hello, everyone. Hope you all have enjoyed our first half of the show tonight as we get started with this premiere episode. As the whale's Whiskers is being carried, and instead of sailing, is being carried over the mountains to the Cerulean Sea underneath the large, extremely large brass wings of the primordial brass dragon Jinsarat. For an idea of scale for folks who are just turning in, Jinsarat, basically his body is longer than the ship itself, and then neck and tail out even beyond that. Wings, pretty much each wing taller than the masts of the ship. So, big dragon. So we will rejoin our crew as they have just been surprised somewhat by Biriana with this sort of a good showman always leaves a bit of a surprise ending as the ship has been picked up and is flying westward. So Biriana sort of looks around to everyone and judges their demeanor. I will say we'll start off. So, Duran, have you come up? Duran, sorry, not. Have you come up on deck yet? Or I know you popped out of your cabin. And Otrek, how are you doing? I know you're flapping, flap. Back and forth.
we are having an existential crisis. Ocean lizards are not meant to be in the sky, and this is not what I signed up for. I did not have Featherfall prepared. I would have liked to have beforehand. No, we're going to be below decks where I don't have to deal with that. I can imagine the rocking of the wind and the rocking of the wings is just waves. We're gonna be working on something, I'm sure.
So actually, let's go ahead and do a Constitution saving throw for everybody, as airsick is a little different than seasick. And for those of you who might be scared of heights, feel free to give yourself disadvantage on that.
All right.
Baller rolls so far.
I know, right?
15 for me.
Okay.
It's a 12 for me.
I got a 15 as well, but
Very cool, very cool, very cool.
I did okay.
23.
How about Duran? How'd you do?
15.
Gotcha. So for the most part, yes, many of you are used to being at sea. So sort of the rocking of a ship and certainly this sort of rhythmic pulsing of Jinsarat's wings above you. While it's a little bit different, it takes a minute or two for you to get your sea legs, your air legs, so to speak. Duran, for you, as you are lifted sort of out of the water and up over these mountains, and whether it's the presence of this primordial brass dragon or just being disconnected, you all but feel almost like someone has opened up a circuit, and while it's still arcing across that gap, your connection with your patron feels odd. You almost feel this sort of tearing sensation as you get higher and higher and go up over the mountains, as being a Fathoms warlock, almost like Otrek, not being used, being a marine iguana, there is a uneasiness that sort of settles into your stomach, as while it's not gone, it's just, it feels far away. And again, kind of like that arcing shortingness. There's not just that connection that you've had so strong for your entire life. How is Duran handling that?
Not well. He's probably, he went from being really agitated earlier on to being like, kind of like, oh, this is why everything is happening to me, and then, oh, now this like unsettling feeling is boiling over, and he's just kind of probably like looking over. He probably looks a lot like Kato, actually, gripping the side of the ship and like looking over and being like, not what I wanted. We need to get down. And then also in the back of his head, this dragon above us, how much do I know of him?
Do me a history check.
Okay, I can do that. No, that's a 5.
Most everyone has heard of Jin Surat. They have something to do with the Shimmering Grove, but as far as anything much beyond that, you don't have a whole lot. Do me an insight check.
Insight. I can do that. Oh, that's a natural 20.
Nice. So, with that insight check, you do feel part of that disconnection with your patron is due to the close presence of this primordial dragon. It is the only way I can describe it, and it's kind of the opposite of what it is. It's as though when you sort of submerge a wire in water, that it's like it's getting canceled out because it's being diffused. It's almost as though the aura of this dragon, it's not just the land being over the land, it's not just being disconnected from the sea. It's the aura of this dragon that is also somewhat interfering with your connection with your patron.
Where's Bariana?
Biriana is sort of striding across the ship. She is probably consulting with Queda, who she would want to definitely be double checking all of this extra rigging to make sure that it's holding up to the forces being exerted on it by this dragon, and that it will in fact hold the ship in the air. As it's about 3, you would know, our navigators would both know, doesn't take long for you to do the quick navigational computations. Certainly Harun being more of the scientific one. Duran, this is not your forte as much, but you've looked at the maps because you know where you were being drawn to. It's going to be a good 3 days in the air to get across this spit of mountains before you would get to water again.
Then I would just give Bariana try and catch her eye, and then since I am a Sapphire Dragonborn and I am telepathic, I would just send her a quick thought. How long is our friend going to be joining us? And she can't communicate back to me, but yeah.
She sort of lifts an eyebrow as though maybe there's an unexpected development. That she looks at you and sees you not your sort of blustery, very present self, and seeing you literally seeing you do what Kato would do. You see her eyebrow sort of lift, and you kind of see her file it away, but she's very interested in Kata, and any information that Queda is giving her regarding the rigging. So speaking of which, Queda, do me a let's do some tool checks. You've got all kinds of fun tool checks to do. You have some we can do certainly carpentry here. I don't think we ever did a specific rigging, but you could certainly do something along the lines of again, let's start with the carpentry check, as that's going to be the real thing you're looking at. Is everything strong enough?
Sure. Hang on.
And also a
just
perception check as well, just to see if what you're catching. Both of which, since you built this, we'll say is an advantage. This literally is what you spent the last 6 months on.
All right. Both at advantage?
Yeah, both can be an advantage.
All right. These carpentry checks, are they, what stat are they being made with?
I believe dexterity.
Dexterity? Okay.
Yep, either dexterity or even this could have been strength. Either one, whatever. If you you can add whichever modifier you would like. I'm fine with pretty good. I'm pretty good with either one. This is that weird thing of rigging on ships. Ooh, one of them was a natural 20. So, basically, yeah, you're as good as they say. It seems to be holding together just fine. Biriana's like sort of looking to you. So you're telling me that she'll hold? We're not going to have any problems. Queda, I trust you, but this has never been done before.
Queta's, she's not really like changing her view. She's just like standing back from it, and she's like watching. She's kind of just been taking the moment to just watch everything fly as it should be doing. Her hand is still in her pocket, still on the boat token in her pocket that she's kind of clutching a bit tighter now that she knows that this was what it was all leading up to. And she just says, Captain, you knew that I was able to do stuff like this. And now you're starting to doubt? You're seeing it with your own eyes, aren't you? She says.
And she just gives a huge smile to Queda and goes, I'm glad to see that you're seeing what I always saw in you.
Queda gives a small smirk because she's still, her mind is still focused on like if she should run at some point.
Yeah.
But she's looking at everything flying, she's hearing her words, and she lets a small smirk at like the corner that Biriana would be facing as she's like keeping in track of like the whole picture.
Yeah.
She lets a small smirk come to her face. She doesn't respond though because she's still like focusing on everything. But
Okay.
I think the acknowledgement is there.
Yeah, it's sort of that big picture, you know, the entire engineering system being sort of digested by Queda. Baldir.
Actually, Baldir wants to check in on Otrek. Did Otrek actually go below decks, or is the flapping happening around? Then yeah,
We're gonna do probably like one or two back and forth, then we're gonna dive below. Like, nope, and we're done.
Okay, I think Baldir would follow you down then and find you wherever you end up. Are you headed to your cabin, or like what's the plan down there?
I imagine there's probably a workspace dedicated to Otrek's tomfoolery, as that's probably not good for your cabinry. So he's probably dived down there. You might find him working on a like a 5-foot long stick of some sort with various cogs and machinery attached to one end, and some really interesting crystal work jutting out at what looks like random parts. There's a lot of frantic scrabbling, we'll say. Tools are being ripped out of pockets and toolboxes. Things are being strewn around. Otrek's normally not this animated, very slow lizard. So this is unusual. You can say he's agitated for sure.
Sure. So Baldir will approach, probably stay towards like the entrance of wherever this workshop is, giving you plenty of space, not actively approaching or anything. And it's just gonna say like knock essentially and be like, Otrek, my friends, a surprise is merely part of invention and discovery, is it not? How are you holding up?
You'll definitely get a reflex hiss with the mouth agape and everything, the tongue. If you can think about like Maori hakas, like the entire like
Yeah.
no, full display, like blossoming red coruscating down his pebbled scale, and then he calms down. He's like, I have to work on this. It is very important for Bariana, and it is delicate, and I cannot be outside. It is very high. High is not good. I do not like high. How are you? Would you like... He looks around for something to give you to distract you. Anything. Almost like give the Lockstone a shiny. I don't know what it is. I just need him out of my face. He's tense, man.
Sure. So Baldir, again, just giving you plenty of room, is going to be like, I understand. I see the same look in your eyes that I saw many, many times, leading people up and down Limehold, through the mountains, the dungeons, through the jungles, the frail, the elderly, and worst of all, the rich and the cowardly. But I tried to tell them each the same thing. Fear holds you back. Fear will keep you down. There's a difference between fear and wisdom. Wisdom will tell you when it's time to run, when it's time to back away. If you gave in to fear, you never would have accomplished, and he just kind of gestures, any of this. Now, I say that with no judgment. For some of those people who couldn't keep up, I did have some enhancements with me, and he gestures to like a series of potions on a belt. If you need it, I do have something that can make this journey a little easier. I don't think you do, but if you want it, I'll leave it here. And he basically places it down on one of the workbenches. I hope to see you back on deck whenever you are ready.
I just gotta step out of character for a second. The whole idea that Baldir and Ortrek with Baldir's hookah are basically our stoner bros on board the ship. I just kind of love that this Luxodon and a lizard folk. These two completely out of place people in this world, finding camaraderie and solace around a hookah and curry.
Legitimately, flavor-wise, I mean, non-flavor-wise, mechanic-wise, it is a potion of heroism. But,
nice.
Yeah.
Otrick will definitely appreciate that. He will crib that to the side, but he will also be like, but do you understand? And a lot of the really like sluggish, kind of relaxed part of Otrek will fall away. I don't know how well Baldir knows Otrek, but he will snap around to a chalkboard that's placed on the wall, and he will start sketching out the exact mathematical, like, here's where we are, here's the height, here's the resilience of the water. He will get it down to brass tacks. He will say, it is not an unknown fear. It is the fear of the known. I am well aware of the risks. Here, do you not see? Look, you are, he does some mental figuring, 3.5 times my size. Let me run the figures. And he does a completely different set of math. This will kill us.
Baldir looks, and like, you can see him just looking through this chalkboard, essentially, but like just kind of nodding every once in a while, and to a point just kind of shrugs and looks to you and says, then it will kill us. I guess it's up to you to keep that from happening.
More flapping and running back and forth, and then focusing back on the staff. I have to get this done for Bariana. It is not complete, but it is very close. She will ask. I thank you kindly for.
May I at least ask before you kick me out of this room? Trust me, I can't see the future, but I can predict it pretty well. What is this?
Otrek leans in, confidentially, holds the staff up slightly at about a 30-degree angle, turns it slowly, and says, I do not know. And he puts it back down, but it is not done. Please give me time.
Sure. I apologize for interrupting. Please come to me if you need anything. And he goes to turn before he turns back wide-eyed and goes, oh, I'm so sorry. And he digs through his bag again and he pulls out a tiny hat and puts it on and goes, this was Baldir, by the way.
Ah, I did not expect another Loxodon on board, but that is very reassuring. Please tell me it's a bowler. I always imagine like Baldir with a bowler.
Yeah, absolutely.
Baldir the bowler cap. I love it.
Thank you. Oh, that makes my day.
So, who wants to go next? We can go up to Kato, or we can go up to Halran.
I don't want to follow that.
So, well,
but I was actually gonna. So Halran gets really caught up in the experience, the presence of Jin Sarat, but after sailing for almost a century with Baldir, has learned to take a cue. So when he goes under, Halran notices that, okay, yeah, so Kato, Duran, maybe still not doing all that hot. Like, let's see if there's anything we can do to help. And so I climb down the rigging and go over to try to do the same thing that Baldir did with Otrek and to ask, or Otrek, excuse me, how the two of them are doing. Starting with Duran, since I didn't get to clap him on the shoulder earlier.
He's real distant right now. Duran is like barely even aware that you've like touched him, and he's actually like kind of like, you can see he's got in one hand, he's holding that like little sphere of water that like kind of is suspended around his neck, and he's just kind of like got that 1,000-yard stare out towards the open ocean, and yeah, not doing great.
I will pull out my canteen of water and cast Shape Water to draw out the actual liquid and sort of just offer it to Duran to do with as he wishes. Either maybe add it to his little sphere, dunk his head into it if that makes him a little happier, but remind him, like, hey, there's still water in the view. It's not all sky and mountains.
He'll probably just kind of like give you a side eye, like, thank you. And then, I don't know that he accepts the water. Maybe he'll like also shape water and just pass it along to Kato.
So yeah, you sort of have this stream and you sort of shape water on top of it. Kato. Poor Kato.
Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. Don't worry about it. Just his claws are just like, I'm sure this was a beautiful banister, this beautiful railing. It was gorgeous. And his claws have just like made indents and maybe a little bit of scraping just to get a better hold if like maybe there was he lost his footing at some point, and he's just, this brass dragon's looking very green at the moment.
I'd say both Duran and Kato, you sort of feel a nudge against your leg or your hand. Yes, both of your dragonborns, so you're both tall. So lug, sort of hip or waist as Ollie, the first mate, our good boy, celestial golden retriever, sort of comes over and just sort of sits, sort of silent behind you, just sort of being, comfort animal. Maybe gives you a little nudge to get a scritch or a pat, but just to be sort of present for the two of you all who are feeling a little bit out of sorts. There's also sort of at the same time, while he's patiently accepting pets or scritches, sends a mental image to Halran of them flying up around Jin Surat, him flying on his wings, and Halran in the shape of a falcon, because they have flown together a lot over the last 100 years that they've sailed together. And so while he's being very patient and being a very good first mate to make sure two members of his crew are taken care of, his mind kind of all but wanders over to Halran of, hey, you want to take a lap around the dragon? You want to take a lap around the dragon?
Yes. Yeah.
Aww.
And I sneak in one of the little treats that I'm carrying.
Oh yeah, he knows you've got those too. So I think certainly with your wild ships, I think you and Ollie definitely have a close relationship.
Well, I have a flying dog wild ship.
There you go. As you're standing there, Kato, just tearing this poor railing apart, Kato probably looking on, hearing the snapping of wood from far away, you do hear a voice behind you. Sir, I have your bath ready.
Thank you, Fritz. I'll be down momentarily. His hand still shaking.
Who is that?
Hi, sir. I'm Frederick Fitzgerald Feldspar the 14th. I'm the cabin boy for Kato.
You have your own personal manservant? Was that necessary as well?
To be fair, this was not something that I planned. Biriana sent him.
Duran does not believe you. He helped you carry a claw-footed bath into your quarters.
Is he pretty like open with the fact that he does not believe Kato whatsoever?
Oh yeah, it's like written all over his face.
Kato's gonna throw up on his foot.
Oh, let me clean that up. It's true, sir.
Queta would have come closer to start repairing the banister that Kato's been gripping very tightly.
Lovingly.
Yeah. Could she also make an insight check on that just to get a better glimpse on where this stranger is from?
Oh, Fritz?
Yeah.
Sure, you can insight, Fitz.
We're already doubting the GM's NPCs.
Of course you are. Why wouldn't you?
I don't trust him.
You know, he's a teenage dwarf. He is just a knot of insecurities and everything else. You have no idea. In fact, you see him there and he immediately sort of drops down, and instead of like cleaning up the vomit on Duran, it seems like just spread it further. About that point, Ollie just looks at Halran and like, does the like, we're out.
Just like, actually, I'll just prestidigitate the water. So this is gonna be funny. Like the water in my sphere just kind of like bubbles for a minute and then expands, and it's just like this shockwave of water like erupts around me, and that's how his prestidigitate just cleans himself off.
Fitz just basically gets covered in water.
Oh yeah,
and vomit.
He does.
That's okay,
Kato.
sir.
Kato holds up a claw. You can use the bath. I'm sorry.
But I just got it drawn for you, sir. But
Kato's gonna like turn and like put a hand on Fitz's shoulder. So at that point, they can like walk off deck. At that point, he doesn't want to put this boy through any more trouble.
Okay, so he takes you down. He starts just sort of probably, you know, Brianna's my great, well, lots of great aunts on my mother's side, second removed. I think that's how I got the job.
It must be.
But, you know, my uncle, like I said, well, his second wife, who kind of raised me but then didn't because I got left behind. But anyway, they said I should be a doctor. And I hear you're a doctor, right?
Yes, I am a doctor.
So, can you teach me to doctor?
I can try to teach you some things that will be of assistance with first aid. Perhaps. It's a good start.
I'm not very good at being first. Can I do second aid?
Let's just start at level 0.
Wait, we gotta go down and see Baldir down in his room on level 0? He just keeps sort of walking and sort of taking you by the hand. Endlessly, he's not real bright.
Are you sure you're not brass?
What?
Don't mind me.
Okay. I can make some more tea.
Please, I need a moment.
So he gets you back. He gets you back to your cabin.
Yeah. But watching all that happen, Queta would kind of be paying attention to that while fixing the banister and say, harmless. That one's harmless. But she's like thinking in the back of her mind, could be a cover, could be any number of things. And she continues just like thinking that over, mulling it over while continuing to repair the banister.
Did she say that out loud?
She would have said it under her breath.
Okay, I probably didn't hear it then.
So Halran and Ollie, basically jumps off the side and just spreads those big sort of iridescent eagle wings. What does Halran turn into?
He has to do the giant falcon for this. That's been his long time flying option form, and with the dragon and all the excitement, he would just default to that for sure.
Yeah. So, you all sort of leap off and begin sort of flying up around Jin Surat, who sort of gives you an eye, but sort of gives you a smile and a little bit of a kind of approving roar as you all go, swinging up around this dragon, up and around, and now seeing sort of the landscape. It's amazing how quickly, in like just the last 30, 45 minutes, the distance that you've made, Port Saradan and the Saradan Sea is just sort of fading there behind you. And in front of you, you just sort of see these ever-growing mountains that you would have known are pretty much unexplored. While many people have traveled underneath of them, there are no outlets from the Limehold Range onto the Cerulean Sea where you all are headed. But, still can't see it. There's just mountains all around, totally virgin, unexplored mountains and forests down below you. And, you all are getting the good, bird's eye view of, this is, not easy terrain. That if for some reason something were to happen to the ship or to Jin Surat, it would not be good news as you sort of take in your surroundings here out around you. You can do me a perception check or a history check, whichever you prefer. And certainly this isn't it's not going to be using like your eagle eyes for this, so you don't get advantage on it. It's more of a perception and understanding of your surroundings.
Sounds good. I will do perception. That is much. Oh wait. Oh,
you're not at disadvantage, so it'd be this. It's not disadvantage, so it'd just be the 17. Okay. So on the 17, I mean, you there are parts of this that remind you a bit of the Emerald Highlands, and there are, Emerald Highlands was loaded with large creatures and predatory creatures, and you all are a big, slow-moving, basically blimp in the sky. So there's just a little bit of something sort of in your gut, your sort of animal instincts of this might not be as benign a flight of fancy over the mountains as Biriana might object. While you do have a giant primordial dragon above you, they basically are tied up with carrying a ship. So wouldn't necessarily be helpful if it got into any type of issues while traversing these mountains.
I'll make close note of that and make sure that Ollie also gets a chance to observe everything, so that he can help report back when we finished our joyride.
Yeah. So you kind of joyride out and around there. As you all sort of settle back down onto deck, I assume Otrek is going to stay in his lab. Would you come if summoned by Biriana up to the deck?
Yeah, absolutely. She's the captain.
Okay. You do get a summon from Ollie to sort of gather on deck. You sort of hear that bark in your head that you've heard before, sort of instead of there being sort of that first officer's whistle, that seems to be summoning everyone up to the deck for Biriana to gather them around.
Yeah, for sure. I'll go. Definitely.
And you do. Never mind. We'll move forward. We're going to go ahead and we'll get there. Biriana sort of looks around all of you. I assume everyone else comes, yes?
Yeah.
Kato, fresh from the bath. That got cold while you again. But you all head up there, and Biriana sort of looks to each of you. Well, now that we're in the thick of it, so to speak, you should know a little bit more about what we're up to. You see, while there's much to explore in the Cerulean Sea, in the Grand Ocean over there, my friend Baldir, can you tell us a little bit about your arrival all those years ago?
Sure. I'm sure most of you know the short of it, at least, but I'm from somewhere else, somewhere where the stars are quite different there. I was out at sea when suddenly a storm overtook my ship, and, well, a lot of it is lost beneath the waves, but when I resurfaced and looked to the sky, I could tell I was somewhere new. The stars, they were different. I saw what my friend Halran here has informed me are called the Three Sisters. I washed ashore eventually, but I've spent nearly 100 years, more, in fact, hoping to get back to them. In that same place I woke up.
So, we're not just heading to the Cerulean Sea, but to the south. For it's not my intent just to explore this world, but perhaps another one as well. And that is where you come in, my friend Duran. Would you care to share what you shared with me, with everyone else, of what you saw?
I assume our friend above knows.
What you saw in the dream with the shard.
Well, the short of it, I saw a vision of a dragon far larger than even our friend carrying us here, crashing into a relatively small sphere. And as he crashed, shards like glass were falling away from him, and it collided into an ocean and then buried itself deep down. And above that ocean, I saw a growing island of crystal. And that's about all I remember sharing with you, Bariana.
So, you see, I think where Baldir came through is where, back at the beginning, this first dragon came through. You've heard me talk about the Zalian Inlet and the Crystal Island there, how it continues to grow. Well, I think those crystals are part of the sky. There's no other way to describe it. Because when that dragon crashed down, it was covered in shards where it broke through the sky. But our friend Duran, he saw that one fell long before it got to that island. And I've charted a path from where I think Baldir came through and where the dragon land, because that glimmering speck, that shard, I think fell somewhere along our path. And if we take that, and she looks to Ultrek, and combine it with what you're making and what you've installed in the back of the ship, with a sky shard, we can open a portal and travel not just to other oceans, but to other worlds.
Otrek will shift a little bit, maybe back and forth uneasily, because he knows that this is uncharted territory. He is a artificer, he is a disciple of the arcane, but this is a new world. This is a completely new idea, and only Bariana's boldness coerced him to even push his studies this far. So he's definitely a little bit uneasy there.
Bariana, you never intended for this to be your last. Did you mean your last in this world?
She smiles. You know me too well, my friend. There's always more adventure. And we've seen it. We've done it. What's another sea on this world? To make more towns, to make more port cities and spread Limehold even further. Perhaps travel and eventually meet our neighbors to the north, where Halran came from. But she looks over and she sort of clasps her arms on the side of Baldir's arms. But to see where Baldir has come from, where even the stars are different, what better grand finale than that? Doesn't it excite you? You tell me about the stone chalice and the knowledge. This is knowledge never explored before.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
How much does she know about my patron?
Not a thing.
Yeah. So you all will probably realize that Duran's got a very tense expression on his face. Because this idea was not shared with him in advance. And he's
Wasn't
kind of
shared
like
with
again,
anybody.
Yep. And he's kind of again like clutching that little swirling ball of water. How do you propose to find the shard deep beneath the ocean, where untold things dwell?
She looks Duran right back in the eye, looks Halran as well, and Otrek, and goes, "What do you think you're here for?"
I should have given you a bad fortune.
Oh, this is so good.
Queta will probably pipe up at this point and say, This is beyond ambitious. You realize, I'm sure you realize, this is treading almost into madness to perform something like this all over a dream, she says, waving over to Duran. Why? How?
It was not a dream. It was a vision. They are... And at that point, the questioning, he will kind of like pluck that little ball of water that's swirling around his neck and then just kind of lift it up to the light, and it'll like stop swirling and sort of settle into like a perfect sphere. And inside of it, you would see there is this tiny little speck. It's almost imperceivable. It's like a grain of sand. This is a sky shard, infinitesimally smaller than what I saw.
I was going to point out that I believe she meant the metaphorical dream, but now I am very interested in the thing that you were holding in your hand.
Otrek points at Queta. Queta, you're not wearing a hat, right?
No, not at all.
Who is the dwarf?
Baldir quickly reaches for the bowler again just to make sure there's no...
Kata's gonna put on a flat cap.
Queta says, "Don't worry about it." And she's still just staring a bit dumbfounded at the sky shard.
I think Birana, to answer Queta's question, goes, "If it were just a vision, I'm not sure that I would have been this bold myself, spending all of my fortune, all of my favors. I certainly owe Jin Sarat a big one to get us here. But between Duran and Baldir and Otrek, the miracles I've seen him perform, and Halran's understanding of the stars, and you," looks right at Queta, "making sure that we're ready for any and every eventuality. And Kato, to keep us alive, I wouldn't be out here if I didn't think we could do it. I also would say 600 years ago, when I first took out the whale's whiskers, and there was not a single port on the Saradan Sea, I had many crew member who said the same thing. Why go? Why risk yourself? We have everything we need underneath the mountain. And yet, we found so much. Is it not our purpose to dream bigger? And then, once we've seen our dreams become a reality, come back and share them. And show everyone else their dreams can come true too.
Utrek would get real pensive about there being kind of the spawn of a progenitor dragon, being an experiment, and having engaged with the stone chalice a little bit adjacent to Kato. Like that definitely treads on some really hard stuff for him. He would kind of go quiet and shift uneasily and kind of lid his eyes a little bit and go silent.
Kato will put a hand on his shoulder.
Queta would be like looking around as she was talking, like out of character, very inspiring, very beautiful. But right now, Queta, who has been kind of just been like living on the run and with like a glance over her shoulder all the time, is now basically locked into this ship, and her and everyone's fate is now tied to this ship. So she is now just like thinking about, okay, what she's looking over at, like every like banister, every like beam.
Yep.
And thinking about how strong does this need to be for us to all be safe. She actually brings over Haran and Duran aside and goes, to go where we need to be going, where I guess we all have to be going now, because I don't think there's any turning back. What do we even need? What kind of anything would we need for this?
Yes, Halron. How do you lead when your maps aren't there to guide you?
Thankfully, Baldir's memory may suffice to give us some bearing. He knows the stars when he entered. Hopefully he remembers the stars from where he came before.
And on that, Baldir, hearing all this, will speak and say, home. But for me, and not for friends, Aura. How do you feel about this? All of this.
Well, I've been away from home for 100 years now. The drow haven't been here much longer than that. And I left to see the world so I could come back with stories. I never thought that I would see another one. But what better story is there? He smiles a bit and then looks towards Bariana and says, we owe her this much. One last voyage. Don't you think?
You take me to my people. I'll bring you back to yours someday, too.
I clap Baldir on the shoulder.
So Biriana sort of looks around, face to face. I cannot say it's going to be easy. And if we get there, even the threshold of the gate, If you wish to stay behind, I will not stop you. Queda has given us an extra boat that we can use for anyone who might be wanting to stay here. And Lord knows Baldir made his way back to Limehold. Ultrek made his way through the Dracovarian jungles to make it to Limehold. Hall ran across the Emerald Highlands to get there. It might not be an easy journey back, but I will not force you to go forward to a whole new world if you do not want to. But I truly believe this is our time.
I will not be joining you, but I will help you get there.
That is your choice, and I will honor it, and do all I can to make sure that you are not left deserted at sea. Not that that would bother you much.
You hear Baldir whisper fish under his breath in a very disgusted manner.
Nice. Otrek will lean in and he will say, "There are no worlds that are not new to me. I come from nothing, from swamps and trees. And until I knew that there was a world that contained stories and words, I had no home. My home is in the stories, Bariana, with you."
Kato's looked really nervous this entire talk because this is something that was going to come up at this point since they were going to a different place. He's going to clear his throat and kind of nervously pick at one of his claws before looking down at his feet. I don't necessarily know what I want. Otrek came from nothing, and I've come from everything, and yet nothing has ever fully filled my chalice. Nothing has filled this yearning for more, this yearning for more knowledge. And I have always been a coward, and perhaps I want to be something more. So I will try to be more with you.
I think that's all any of us can ever hope for, correct? I was just a girl who liked to dangle her feet in the sea. And now here I am on a ship over a mountain under a dragon with all of you.
Queda has been scanning around the room, just listening to everyone's reactions, watching everyone. She happens upon, if he's in the room, Fitz, for whatever reason. Thinks about, and seeing Fitz makes her think about, what is it even called? Frost Forge?
The Frost Forge Depths.
Yes, thinking back to the Frost Forge Depths and to Old Stone and any of the other places that she knows, and thinks about who probably is waiting for her there, and thinks, a new world. I've been running all my life. She's thinking this over in her head. Been running all my life. A new world. A place where they can't follow. Maybe I don't have to run anymore. At that moment, her eyes turn back to Bariana. She kind of looks at her for a moment, sees her expression, which I assume is determined at this point.
Determined and smiling. I think
Hmm.
there's also a knowing look at Queta, I think, sort of waiting for Queta to maybe go through this thought process.
Yeah. So Queta's expression doesn't change. She's pouting very ponderously, very seriously. Um, she reaches into her bag, rifles through it, uh, grabs carpenter tools, and immediately sets out to start looking over the mast.
Gotcha. I think as Queta sort of breaks the meeting, and I think Birion has about said all she wants to say. She sort of gives Ollie a scritch on the back of the head, who gives a bark sort of in delight, and sort of looks around sort of with a nod and goes, "Well, we've got ourselves another 2.5 days of flying, by my figuring, before we're back upon the sea. We've got a lot to do." She looks to Duran and Haran, and she sort of says, I think first is figuring out where along the path of that first dragon. Perhaps one of the shards could have fallen, where we can begin to look for it. Because without that, and Ultrek's invention, I don't think we'll be able to make the ship ready to pass through the portal. Very well, then. And she sort of gives everyone a smile and then sort of walks back up to the steering wheel at the back and takes back over from one of the crew who are there, sort of let you all have a few moments sort of without her sort of imposing her will upon you all. And I'm going to step back and let you all chat if you all would like to.
Oof. Wow. I need just a second to absorb all that. I'm sorry, Squall. That was amazing. Thank you. I'm just gonna sit back for just a second.
No worries. Thank you. First thing, I guess we should go above table. Any questions? So just to be clear, normally in a long, years-long campaign, I'd let there be mysteries. But in case there wasn't anything clear, so y'all are clear on sort of the plot of our next sort of 10-week adventure. First thing, any questions, or I can sort of really lay it out of character type idea.
A summary would be great. Like, I know, I know exactly. I know as a player, like, kind of what you're getting to. I have some stuff in the back of Otrek that you and I have talked about, but I would love to hear how you'd lay this out as just kind of the people in chat. Like what they're expecting over the next 9 or 10 games.
Okay, really so, it is, it's a quest, of course. So the idea is, way back at the beginning of the world. I mean, don't want to go too deep into this because I don't want to bore everyone with lore. But basically, this first dragon who landed and breathed life into the world broke the sky, sort of broke through the sky, and basically shards of the sky sort of embedded themselves into its hide, and it crash landed. But along its path from where Baldir entered the world to where it came to rest, up in the north near Jadenpool, where some of you all know about, one of these shards sort of fell off of its hide and fell to the earth, which Duran saw in a vision, along with the crashing out, saw this shard fall. Duran, while he was up in Jadenpool for the last 100 years, has sort of been being called to by this, and found this one grain of sand, and when he touched it, gave him this vision of the dragon falling out of the sky and the sky shard falling. Like we said, Baldir, it's one of the weird things of this world, how a lot of other species just sort of, I call them castaways of the plains. When you sort of go missing in another world, the people who walk into a forest and vanish, you sort of end up washing up on shore down to the south in this world. Baldir, with his elephantine memory, remembers coming through that transition and landing here. Remembers the before, the between, and the after. That there is an actual like portal that's there. So putting those two together created this, but knowing that it's sort of a random happen chance, why people aren't just coming in and out of it all the time, basically Biriana is like, we need something to power this. It's her best guess that this piece of the sky will be basically the magic, have the magic in it to open the portal, install it into the rod she's asked you to make, basically the big giant generator in the back of the ship. Shard goes in the rod goes into the generator, which basically powers up all the runes on the ship to then go traversing through the plane. So it's the get there, first thing, get to the ocean, start looking along the path of this first dragon to see if you can find a shard, get the shard, install the shard, find the portal, go through the portal. Folks who want to stay behind, stay behind.
Yeah, so there is an eject button built in.
There is the eject button for characters.
To see glory through, but still get home. Supposedly.
Yeah, supposedly
yes.
there's an eject button for the folks who decide not to go through.
I'm strapping you to the gun whales, though. I don't care.
Yeah, because it was said out loud in the middle of the game. Queta did in fact have a separate floating boat installed inside as a life raft, because I thought we were just gonna do boating, and so I thought if our boat gets mauled, we have another boat, but also in character for occasions such as this.
Cool. So hope does that make things clear. I like to do a little bit of above table so that people, especially I figure it's nicer to have it laid out than instead of people being confused, and we might as well do it on stream so our audience has it laid out as well.
No, this is cool, man. Thank you.
Perfect.
Very good. So we can dive back into character a little bit as we fly westward, and we start to come across our first evening. How does the party sort of settling into this reality of that the ship is flying, the reality that they're heading possibly to another world? What, if anything, is the party doing to sort of either help them process it? You know, it sounds like Quaid is getting to work. Others might need to do other things. There are also there's some crew members who are on here. Some of them, just sort of the general deckhands. A few of them we've met. The cook, the Lars, the sort of the ballista master, and of course Fitz is here as well.
Not that he's doing this right away, but Baldir does make a comment as he puts a hand up to his chin, kind of strokes his face, and just says very stoically, "This will take much reflection tonight." And at this point, it's pretty well known that much reflection means he's going to pack a very large bowl in his cabin, and anyone is very open to the invitation. So.
No, I want to riff on that real quick, not to cut anyone else off, but
absolutely.
Otrek being in charge of some esoteric nonsense from Biriana, I want to get the feel, the vibes, and some deeper connections with the people, the beings, the spirits of other people that have been in these other locations. I want to get a connection with the webs and the gateways and the mystical congruences. So yeah, I'm absolutely going to be Otrek is going to be exactly as high as he looks in his token, just hanging out with Baldir and just packing a solid bowl, trying to get those vibes, because Baldir is I know that Hauran has some really good connections and some vibes, and Otrek and Hauran have a little bit of connection there. But just the way that we've been playing, Baldir really strikes me as the person that Otrek is more vibing with, that isn't from here. So I want to explore that. So we're gonna definitely pack a bowl, light some incense. There's gonna be some esoteric sigils drawn on the wall in various alchemical reagents that draw things to them, gather them up, bind them to it. Just give me that idea. I'm going to break out the abacus, and it's going to have various like semi-precious stones that move in particular ways that give me ideas to actually draw the congruences that I'm going to need to embed in this staff and get the cogs exactly right for Bariana. That's what I want to be doing.
Okay, so we can focus in on. Tell you what, we'll focus in on that. Let's see what everyone else is doing, because I've got to we got to really jump into that scene. But for other folks, what's Queda? We saw is she just throwing herself into the work, or is she also? What else is Queda out and doing?
Queda would be jumping into the work, but I think she would also actually take probably either Haran or Duran aside again, because right now one of her big concerns is so she takes both of them aside.
Okay, let's see that scene.
Yeah. So she grabs the two of them, brings them up onto the deck to just like look out over the over I guess the clouds that they're like flying over.
The sky is pretty clear, but you can see the ground down below. Sort of, you're kind of in that weird space where there's sort of right at, almost as like you're sailing in the clouds. You know, there's breaks in them, and you can see the ground below. But if you didn't know better, you could almost be convinced that the clouds were the sea. There again, the moon is still very full as you all sort of begin to. It's not fully dark yet, but you know the moon has risen early, so it's sort of that ghostly moon in the sky as the sky just begins to flush a little bit purple as the sun is beginning to set, and the three of you all are sort of up on deck together.
Right. All right. So Queda would turn to the two of them and ask, all right, this ship, I helped build this. I know that this will get us where we need to go, at least when we touch down. I need to know, where are we going? Where are we touching down? And what is this place like? Do either of you know?
I turn and look at Duran, who has at least seen it in a vision, potentially.
Well, I actually think, ironically, your maps, once we get them up to par, we can easily track the path that dragon fell. And then from there, it's a matter of searching and hoping that something else has not already found it.
So, you suggest we arrive where Baldir came through, where he can confirm that the maps are correct, and then travel along the dragon's path.
Yes.
Queda pipes up quickly and says, that seems like a good plan. I'm more concerned with, though, what we need once we touch down. She's thinking about how people will react to a flying boat landing on the ocean somewhere, potentially if they might come across unsavory types in wherever they land. And she's wondering more if she kind of asks them, do you know anything more about the area that we're going to land in?
I will tell you this. No one for the last century was willing to travel beyond the throat of Zalia. Much to my chagrin. So, no one knows what's out there. Truly uncharted waters.
So Duran, I'm going to step in. Actually, I'm not going to step in. We'll talk after stream. We got to figure out how we want to do your visions, your divinations. and we'll figure that out, because certainly your dreams tonight could be awakened, especially with this sort of gap you're feeling. It would definitely do some stuff. So we will talk off stream about how we want to handle your divinations. But what he says is true. Yeah. At least for 100 years and beyond, no one's been in the Cerulean Sea. They've only been seen from the mountaintops.
Go right ahead.
I mean, talking a little bit above table, there's a potential role there, DM.
Sure.
Because I have a little bit.
Sure. No, absolutely. If you want to roll, do it. Roll to see if you've had previous visions. Well, you saw certainly the vision of the dragon crashing, but then also this is somewhere for 100 years you've been sort of drawn to. So.
Right. What am I rolling?
Tell you what, we're gonna do this as a D100.
Yep. Fair.
We're gonna do this as a D100, almost like a divine intervention check, but the DC will be a little different than divine intervention. Think low numbers.
Well, I got a 60.
On a 60, your mind is just filled with this impossibly clear, impossibly blue sea. And the color isn't because of any sort of coloration of the water or the impurities in the water. It's that it is so deep. In fact, the times that you have had it in your vision and what stuck with you is that it's almost like floating on an invisible surface, and because it's not until the light begins to refract and penetrate down into it that the blue color comes into it. It is almost, when you probably fathomless, but yes, when you first experienced it, you felt it was sort of a mystical place. But then as the years passed by, seeing it again and again in visions, you started to realize that no, it's just the nature of this very still, crystal clear, fathomless, almost bottomless sea. And that when people have seen it from the mountains, it's just because they've seen it from a distance, and so that it's almost like Crater Lake, that just almost unnatural blueness comes from just this crystal clear depth of that ocean, of that sea.
Well, this may not be of any comfort, but I'll turn to Queda after, having this in retrospect and thinking, and say, but I also may know it when I see it.
So.
All right. Sorry. Sorry, I was looking at something in my inventory.
No worries.
She looks back out toward the open ocean, and then looks up toward the stars. Rifles in her bag again and pulls out her painter supplies. She grabs a blank large piece of parchment, scribbles a little something in like the center, and hands it over to Haran, and says, "From the sounds of things, it looks like we'll need to be ready for anything. And I guess that means a new map. Good luck," she says. She foists the parchment onto... She gives the parchment over, thrusting it into Haran's chest. If he looks at the center of it, it'll mark like a WW for Whale's Whiskers, and it'll have a small picture of the flower that Haran gifted her at the end of their finale show.
Nice. So, Kato, I want to check in with you real quick.
Kato will take Fitz after they have after stomachs kind of calm down. The craziness of the day is starting to wear off. Evening settling in, and he's gonna show Fitz some good ways to wrap bandages. Just do some really super basic first aid off in the corner, because he doesn't want to be anywhere that's loud or boisterous or anywhere that's gonna be a hot box. Kato's gonna kind of keep it super chill for the evening.
Got it. You turn your back for like a second on Fitz, and when you turn back around, he literally has wrapped himself like a mummy in bandages. I was trying to wrap my wrist, and then it sort of got around my waist, and then it kind of got over. I had to try to grab it, and it got over my shoulder, and I'm about to fall over, and he falls over.
I believe we have stumbled across something exemplary. We just have to dig it out of you. And he'll kind of pop a claw and break the bandage and start trying to get him out of it.
You know, my second cousin on my uncle's side used to say something like that to me as well. Thank you. As you get him loose. And we will finish off our evening in a smoke-filled cabin with these strange gems sort of glowing up on the wall. And it's probably, later into the evening. You all have spent relaxing, gathering your thoughts for the last hour or so, and just give me a last final interaction before we sign off for the evening between Otrek and Baldir.
So Baldir, why don't you take us away? I want to see what you're setting up for us with Hookah. You seem also to be the man in charge of snacks, yeah?
Yes, there's definitely some leftovers from the 2 a.m. trip. There's some fried food, there's some sliders, and Baldir will do what he can with the magic he possesses to warm them back up, get them in a nice but also at a certain point, it doesn't matter how good they actually are, we're gonna eat them regardless. It's just kind of one of those nights. It's, in a nice way. This isn't just typical we're getting stoned off our asses. This is supposed to be some very nice stuff that is very relaxing, very calming, and helps channel one's mind to find peace.
Okay.
And so Baldir will go off of what he heard Otrek say earlier, actually, and try to temper it with, an intro saying, "My friend, it's been a wonderful evening with you. There's a lot ahead of us, but if you don't mind, and you are quite in your right to mind, should you choose, if I could ask, this trip may take me back to where I am from, but you, what you said on deck, you're a stranger to every world, it seems. You seem to seek knowledge, to seek invention, to seek greatness. But I do like to ask for those who wish to share it with me. These are all things you seem to seek. What are you actually looking for?
When my people first breathed air, when my tribes first learned to make shelters, when my people first learned to civilize and to have laws, these were not ours. These were given from above. I found, long ago, a book. It washed ashore. I could not read it. I did not understand it. I do not know what it meant. But knowing that there is a way to teach others long absent from me, that there is a way for knowledge to be given to those not in my presence, for our stories to pass down beyond what we are able to give in this time. That is what I seek. Bariana is much storied. There are many, many tales of her exploits in the whale's whiskers. Cato is a learned scholar. The Stone Chalice respects them highly. Their treatises on health and wellness and life, those will live beyond them. I wish to give that to my people and to the people that do not know me. When I die soon, I will be a name in a book. I'll be a story passed on to others. I will be knowledge. I will be wisdom. I will be lessons. I will be greater than myself. And there is no spirit, there is no tale greater than that. And how can I not pass beyond this world into another to give my wisdom to a completely different world? You ask why? I ask, how could I not?
Baldir nods at that and says, Selasa. That's what we call my home. It's a place. It exists. Perchance we'll get there. Your Selasa, my friends. It's here. And for that,
Yes.
I consider you extremely lucky.
Selasa, my brother. Selasa.
We fade away from Baldir and Otrek. The night, evening passes into night, night into darkness. We might check in with some other people of how their night went, but elsewhere in the ship, sleeping in her bed, Biriana begins to dream. Duron.
So Duron is going to enter into Bariana's dream and make it take the shape of that vision that we showed earlier, with that fathomless ocean beneath us, and we're just kind of suspended above it. And then he's going to kind of like be a little solemn and then look up to her and say, "My patron may not want to part with it." And underneath that fathomless ocean, there's just going to be this like ripple, and you'll see this like or she will see this bronze form sort of raise up out of the ocean and then dive deeply back into it, looking very similar to the dragon that is carrying us.
And that is where we'll end our session for the evening.
Oh my god.
Oh, good one. Good one.
You
I
son
love
of a
you
gun, you
all.
did it again!
I love you all. Oh my God.
So let's go around real quick. We're a little bit over, so let's keep it quick. But tell us about yourself, where we can find you on the interwebs. We'll go backwards. Let's start with Grant.
Yeah, so I'm Grant. I do some 5e stuff. You can find me on Twitter as @Soklemon, which is SOKLEMON, which is the name of my first 4e PC.
Great. Next up, Ace.
Yeah, I'm Ace. You can find me at Ace of Sween. I am just a normal DM and civil engineer. That's it.
Cool. Next up, Meta.
Hi, I'm Metazoa. You can find me on Twitch at that account that I put with my message saying hello, I'm Queta, because that's who I play. You can also find me on Twitter at the same username. I do a little bit of music. I stream video games sometimes. I'm kind of into the idea of composing background music for tabletop games, but that's a work in progress. So
Next up, Soul.
So I'm everywhere, like literally everywhere, as Souls Rolls. You can find, I've got a website, it's soulsrolls.com. I'm on Twitter, Souls Rolls, Twitch, Souls Rolls, Facebook, Souls Rolls. Anywhere you can find me, that's what I do. I've got a background in health education. I was a skinny guy, and then I decided not to be. I do a lot of uplift. I do a lot of helping people out, giving them GM advice, and also giving them health and wellness advice. If you ever have any questions, if you're ever having a bad day, please message me. I'm there for you.
Thank you so much for that. Bird.
Hey, I'm Bird. You can find me basically everywhere as Bird versus Plane. I'm a charity streamer when I get to it. God, this year has been wild. So, yeah, man, I don't really have much to say. That was baller. Sick. I can't wait for more of this.
And last but not least, Kuma.
Hey guys, you can find me on Twitter and Twitch at Kuma the Bronze, Kuuma. I Twitch stream. I'm a DM. Most of my tweets are healthcare related because I work in healthcare. Be nice to your healthcare workers right now. We are struggling, and lots of D&D content. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys.
And I am Tall Squall. You can find me everywhere as Tall Squall. I hope you all had a great time and enjoyed our premiere episode. And we got 9 more of these to go. There's a lot to come, folks. And I am sure excited to see where this cast and all of their stories take us. So until next time, gather your friends together and tell a story, because that's what it's all about. Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Good night.
have a good night, everybody.